Right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to night number 11, Read Aloud with Dr. Ivey. Actually, it is night number 12. I am already losing count. How about that? Boys and girls, thank you again for joining us and tuning in with us for another nightly Read Aloud. For those of you who are just now joining us, my name is Trevor Ivey, and I am a proud educator here in Sumter County in the great state of South Carolina. And like so many other educators right here in my very own community across our state, our nation, and the world, everyone is being asked to step out of their comfort zone to truly redesign teaching and learning experiences so that they can be engaging for children during this unprecedented time when schools are closed. And so my commitment to make one small contribution to that growing movement is through a nightly Read Aloud. So here we are on our 12th day of schools being closed. And our Read Aloud for us tonight is going to take us on a journey, a bucket filling journey that I am sure many of you boys and girls have read before, but I chose it for tonight's Read Aloud because I think it brings on a whole new meaning for us since many of us have remained at home for the last several weeks. And I thought it would be just a great sense of rejuvenation to this concept of being a bucket filler. So before we get started, I just want to pick up where we left off last night. We read a book titled If I Built a Car. And it was a pretty cool book about a little boy named Jack who wanted to build this very special car. And he just didn't want any old car. He wanted a grand car, in his very own words. And so he decided to dream of this new car using the engineering design process of ways that it would just be bigger and better than any other car. Some things that you may remember in his dream car was a snack bar. It was made of plexiglass. There was Robert the robot. And the best feature of all, if you remember, was that it would take you soaring high into the sky. And so our engineering design process challenge from last night was for boys and girls of all ages to design their own dream car. And of course, you had to use the engineering design process, which we have been using in several of our Read Aloud challenges. And I want to stop and say thank you to several boys and girls who submitted their dream car design to me last night through Facebook or email. Andrew got yours. I thought the glitter was pretty spectacular. And Caroline also received yours. So what I am challenging you to do tonight is to pick up where you left off with your solution and go ahead and build your prototype. And that will take you into step number 3, which is to make the model and then test the model. So use some household materials that you'll find around the house to build your dream car that you have on paper, and take a picture or record a video to send to me, and we'll pick up with this on tomorrow. So boys and girls, are you ready for tonight's Read Aloud? A very special book that, again, I'm sure many of you have read before. Maybe your teacher read this to you at school, but again, the title is How Full Is Your Bucket? So when we look at the front cover of the book, boys and girls, we immediately notice that there are two or multiple names in this case that are listed on the front cover of the book. And so it's really important that we stop and we identify the different elements that we see in this text. So we know that if there are multiple names, that must mean that there are different roles that these people play. So tonight's book is written by Ton Ratch and Mary Reckmeyer, and the pictures are illustrated by Marie Manning. And when we look at the front cover of the book, boys and girls, we automatically know that we can classify this book as a fiction text because the pictures are not real. So let's find out what this book is all about. How full is your bucket? Felix was putting on one of the last blocks of his tower when his little sister came in. "I want to build with you," she said. Felix scowled. Go away. You're too little. I'm big. What do you mean, Felix? Felix says, stay back. You're gonna knock it over. His sister says, I can be very careful. But Felix says, go away and play with your baby toys, Anna. How do you think that made Anna feel? Not so happy. And what did Anna do back? She knocked over Felix's tower. Ooh, that was not nice, was it, boys and girls? Felix yells out, Grandpa! Grandpa comes, but he just shook his head. Felix, you just dipped from your sister's bucket. Like everyone else, Anna has an invisible bucket. When it's empty, she feels bad. But when it's full, she feels great. Didn't you ever notice that you had your own bucket above your head? Invisible bucket, Felix said? Sometimes Felix couldn't quite tell when his grandfather was joking or he was telling the truth. But the very next morning when Felix woke up, there it was, a small gray bucket floating above his head. See the bucket, boys and girls? Oh my goodness. So when Felix came down that morning to have breakfast, his mom was in a hurry. Mom said, I've got a meeting this morning, boys and girls, and it's almost time to go. Anna, I need you to sit still. What is Mom doing in this picture? She looks like she's in a rush, doesn't she? She's helping to get Anna's hair ready. Meanwhile, while getting breakfast ready for all of the others, including Felix. Felix slipped and choco wheat scattered all across the floor. Felix, yelled his mom. You should have used the stool to reach that. Felix could feel his bucket tip and big invisible drips spill out. Drip, drip. Ha ha. Anna laughed as she crunched the cereal with her shoe on the floor. Drip. There goes another drip. Get the broom right now and clean that mess up before you miss the bus, scolded his mother. With the school bus honking outside, Felix quickly swept up the choco wheats off the floor and grabbed the last blueberry muffin. But before he could even take one bite, what do you think's gonna happen? Oh, I don't know. Buster the dog jumped up and grabbed the muffin out of his hand. Drip. There goes another drip. Hey, look at Felix's new backpack, yelled another boy on the bus. My baby brother has one just like it. Drip. Felix, psst. Watch out, little shrimp. Drip. Look at all of these behaviors that other boys and girls are showing to Felix. How do you think it makes Felix feel? Probably not very good. In fact, we know he's not feeling good because there are drips coming from his invisible bucket on top of his head. Let's find out what's going to happen next. It was still morning at school, and Felix's bucket felt almost empty. Look at all the boys and girls at school. Can you see Felix? He doesn't look happy, does he? Look at the bucket above his head. Why is it not so full? Do you know why? That's right. Not very nice things have been said to Felix that causes him to make him not feel so good. Let's find out. As he watched his classmates walk into the room, he secretly hoped they would trip and fall. That's what it feels like when you have an empty bucket floating above your head. Boys and girls, have you ever felt that way before? Where maybe other people have made not so nice comments to you and you feel towards others that you want their bucket to be empty like yours? Let's find out what Felix does. Felix slumped into his seat and waited for something else bad to happen. He just knew it was going to happen. Mrs. Bumbernickel, the teacher, she walked slowly up to his desk and handed him a paper he could barely hard to look at. Felix, the teacher wrote, you have written a beautiful story. Would you please share it with the class? Felix grinned. And all of a sudden, he felt a big drop land right into his bucket. Drop. And another drop. Plop, plink, drop. Felix got in front of the class and started to read his paper. The Gigantosaurus Who Wanted a Pet by Me, Felix. The class grew quiet. They laughed at all the right places that they were supposed to laugh, and they went ooh, and they went ah at the scary parts of his story. When Felix finally read the very end of his story, everyone started clapping, even Emily, who sat next to him and didn't usually like dinosaurs all that very much. Felix felt a shower of drops land in his bucket. Maybe the day wouldn't be so bad after all. Look at him. Look at his bucket. What do you notice that's different about his bucket? It's starting to get full again. I wonder what's causing the drops to come down. Oh, there's another drop. Look at the boys and girls at lunch. Look at the note that's in his lunchbox from his mother. It says, love you, love mom. Then at gym class, the teacher announces, today, boys and girls, the team captains are going to be Veronica and Felix. There goes another drop. Ooh, he was feeling good. In art class later that afternoon, the art teacher came up behind Felix as he was painting on the easel and said, nice cow. Felix said, it's a dog. The teacher said, well, nice colors there, Felix. Good use of the brush. Then in the hallway later that afternoon, another classmate came up to Felix and said, cool laser ant backpack, Felix. I wish I could get one of those. Look at the bucket now. It's getting fuller. By afternoon, boys and girls, Felix's bucket was nearly full. At recess, when he looked around, Felix suddenly realized that his grandpa was absolutely right. Everyone else has a bucket too. Look at the pictures, boys and girls. What do you notice above everyone's head? Not just Felix's. Everyone has a bucket. Now look at those buckets. Are they all full like Felix's is right now? No. Some are empty, some are half full, and some are full. Let's continue to read and find out what's happening. Drop, drop. An adult comes to Felix in the hallway and says, oh, let me help you pick up those papers from the floor. Another drop, and another drop. And a friend tells Felix, here's your baseball catch. Thanks, dude, Felix said. Another drop, and another drop. The new kid at school came up to Felix on the bench at the playground and said, hey, want to be my friend? Felix said, sure, my name is Felix. Is this your first day here at school? The strange thing was that for every drop he helped put in someone else's bucket, he felt another drop in his own bucket. Look at his bucket now, boys and girls. It's full. So when Felix burst in the door after school that day at home, he shouted, Grandpa, Grandpa, you were right. I do have an invisible bucket above my head, and I understand how it works. Then he saw his sister named Anna, who had the torn doll. Bad dog, he almost scolded. But when he thought about that, dogs might have invisible buckets above their head too. Your doll is going to be okay, Anna, said Felix, and Mom will fix her. Oh, look at Anna. She's crying. And Felix, until then, do you want me to help build the tallest building in the world with my blocks? Do you see what Felix just did? He's trying to turn a bad situation around to make it good and invited Anna to come play with his blocks. Remember, in the beginning of the story, boys and girls, he didn't want Anna, his sister, to come play with the blocks. And so they did. Look at their buckets above their head. What do you notice? They're both full. That was a good book, wasn't it, boys and girls? So you might be asking why we chose this book for tonight's Read Aloud. Well, as I said earlier, I thought that it would be a great way to kind of remind us of what we should be doing during this time that we are at home, and really a lot of things have changed. But one thing that has not changed, boys and girls, is the way that we treat others and the way that we should be behaving at home and doing kind things for others. Even though things have changed, that's one thing that has not changed. So let me ask you a couple of questions from our Read Aloud from Felix and Anna's situation. What are some ways that filling someone else's bucket looks like? Can you think of ways that you can fill someone else's bucket, or the way that it looked in this story? Tell your parent, your older sibling, or your fuzzy friend. Well, some examples of what filling another bucket looks like was sharing, smiles, and doing nice things for others. There are numerous examples in our story tonight where Felix discovered that Grandpa's concept of the bucket above our heads being invisible was actually true. My next question to you is, what are some ways that filling someone else's bucket sounds like? What does it sound like? Can you think of some ways? Share with an adult, your fuzzy friend, or your older sibling who may be sitting next to you. Well, some ways would include giving others compliments, just like from the story, saying kind words, and of course, making sure that you say please and thank you. My last question is, if we know what filling someone else's bucket looks like and sounds like, what does it feel like? Can you think of some examples from our story tonight where it made Felix feel a certain way, Anna feel a certain way, or Grandpa or other characters? That's right. Some ways that filling someone else's bucket feels like is being friendly, being polite, being kind, and just being happy, right? Those are ways that filling someone else's bucket looks like. So if you are still stuck about what this whole concept means, I want to take just another moment to talk with you about what it actually means. So every day, boys and girls, you have this empty bucket that is above your head. Is it a real bucket above our head? No, it's imaginary. And just like anybody else, we want our bucket to be full. And when our bucket is full, we feel full of energy, we feel positive, and we are excited to carry on our day. But when our bucket is empty, we feel just like Felix did in the story. We feel negative, we feel sad, and we may feel lazy. But throughout the day, as we go throughout our day, we have to think about others and the buckets that are above their heads. And it's our goal, it should be our goal, to fill not only our bucket, but also to use that dipper to fill other people's buckets as well. But unfortunately, boys and girls, many of the times without realizing, we do the quite exact opposite, right? We use our dipper to take from other people's buckets and we try to fill our own, Maybe we might have a bad attitude with somebody. We might have an argument with a friend or a family member. Or we may be around people that are just not nice, right? They are negative. They may be complaining. And so what is really cool about this whole idea of being a bucket filler is that you can do this anywhere and everywhere. You don't have to be at school. You don't have to be at your games, and you don't have to be at piano practice or at church. And even though a lot of things have changed, and we are having to stay at homes to be safe during this very unprecedented time that we find ourselves in, being a bucket filler is something that you can do anywhere and everywhere. So you can always find ways to fill other people's buckets. So I want to share with you 3 ways that I am going to encourage you to be a bucket filler. The first way is to be grateful. All right, it's really important to have an attitude of gratitude. It's the quickest way to make yourself and others be very happy. Number 2 is to prevent bucket dipping, right? That's something that Felix showed us in the story that doesn't work out the way that he thought it was going to work out. So pay attention to how you are interacting with others. Ask yourself, when you interact with others, are you taking away from their bucket or are you adding to it, right? And the last strategy that I want to give to you is to think about the golden rule. You remember the golden rule? To do unto others as you would want someone to do unto you? Well, in this case, it doesn't always necessarily apply to the concept of being a bucket filler, right? So while you may want to make others feel appreciated and positive about themselves, you got to remember that it's never a one size fits all, right? You have to find out what it is about them that is unique and it makes their bucket get full. And so that's the activity that I want to challenge you to do tonight, tomorrow, in the next day or so when you have some extra time. Since we all are at home, I want you to go around to everyone that's in your house and I want you to just ask them one question. I want you to ask them, what are some ways that you like for your bucket to be full, right? Or you like for your bucket to be filled. So if you have mom and dad at home and you have one sibling, that means that I want you to talk to 3 different people. If you have multiple siblings, try to talk to each of your siblings and find out what's one thing that makes their bucket get full. And so what I want you to do once you've collected that information is I want you to design a bucket filling poster that looks like the one that Dr. Ivey is holding up. So you have a nice bucket. Doesn't my bucket look very happy? You have a place right here for the name of your bucket. If this were my bucket, I would put Dr. Ivey's bucket right there. And at the bottom, there is space for you to use the information that you collected in interviewing the others in your house to find out what it is that you could do to fill their bucket. So this is not an activity about you and filling your bucket. This is an activity that is going to ask you to go around to the other people in your house and ask them what are some ways that they like their bucket to be filled. So you're going to take that information, decorate your bucket, and write a short description at the bottom. Would love to see your pictures and would love to see boys and girls that are practicing the skill of communication. So if you have somebody else that can record you as you share out your bucket, that would be great. Send those to me. We'll post them like we've done with the others, and we'll see who has a very creative bucket. All right, boys and girls, and before you get ready for bed and go off and brush your teeth, let's do our nightly reflection. So you remember those 4 questions that Dr. Ivey has asked you for the last 11 nights. They have not changed. Question number 1, What was your most favorite part about today? What was your most favorite part about today? On day number 12 of being home from school. Tell your parent, your older sibling, or your fuzzy friend what was your most favorite thing about today. For me, the most favorite thing about today was I finally found a bike to get. You may remember that I have been sharing in several of my nightly reflections that I wish I had a bike, but I think I finally found one, and I'm excited to soon get it so that I can take advantage of going out for a nice bike ride. All right, question number 2. What was your least favorite part about today? What was your least favorite part? Well, for me, boys and girls, my least favorite part about today was that it rained and it got a little cooler, right? That was my least favorite part about today. Question number 3. If you could change one thing about your day today, what would you change? What would you change? Well, for me, one thing that I would change is I wish I could have changed the weather to where the sun could have come out and to shine a little more. But I hear that we have great weather coming to our area for the next week, so I'm excited about that. All right, our last question, question number 4. What is one thing, boys and girls, that you hope is going to happen tomorrow? One thing that you hope is going to happen. One thing that I hope is going to happen tomorrow is that I get all of my work done. And I hope that you boys and girls get all of your work done and are being great scholars at home and getting all of your e-learning done and turned in on time to your teachers. Well, boys and girls, that's it for Dr. Ivey on night 12 of our Read Alouds. Remember, if no one has told you that they love you, Dr. Ivey is here to tell you that he loves you. Have a good night, boys and girls. See you tomorrow.